Welcome, everyone. This is a webinar on how to learn R fast. It's designed for business analysts, so people in different business domains. And this is part of a series of webinars that we're going to be doing this year. It's something a little bit new. And we actually started it last year with one webinar on how to become a data scientist without a degree. But we're really going to be focusing this year a lot on the beginner data scientists, really helping to develop them into an intermediate and advanced data scientist. So that's what this webinar series is all about. A couple pointers along the way. Definitely stick around in this one because at the end, we're going to be giving everyone this new and updated R cheat sheet. I just went in and updated the Ultimate R cheat sheet. It's 3 pages, and it's going to be one of the tips at the end on how to learn R fast. It's an amazing resource, and I just put a lot of effort into making sure that everything is updated on it. The other piece, we're going to be talking a little bit about the R ecosystem. We're mainly going to be focusing on a series of packages called the Tidyverse in this one, and that'll be useful. So if you've never heard of the Tidyverse, that's okay. We're going to explain it to you. So let's get started. The main ideas here, when I sat down and thought about it, there's kind of 3 different things that are going on for the beginner data scientist. And this is somebody who might have a job already or might be a student, and they're thinking about learning data science. And I asked myself, why is this happening? Well, the main thing is that careers are changing, and we've got this new technologies that are coming about called data science. And what this new technology ends up being is an enhancer to these roles that we have. So what I'm finding is that people that are having success are using R as an enhancer. It's helping them do their job better. And they're getting then promoted, and their careers accelerating because their peers aren't doing that. And it's really the businesses identifying these people and seeing that they're a key piece of the puzzle. So R ends up being a major superpower, and that's what we see here on this slide. So it doesn't matter, what domain you come from. R can help you do your job better. So if you come from human resources and you deal with analytics, R can help you be a better human resources analyst. If you're a salesperson and you are trying to field, different customers and calls, R can help you mine through the data and make sure you're focused on the right tasks at the right time. If you're a financial analyst and you're dealing with financial data, R can help you analyze massive amounts of financial stock data, portfolios, aggregations, and do all of this in seconds, much faster than other tools can do. So R ends up becoming your superpower. And this is where I'm really seeing the benefit with the people that are having success with R. So just to prove this point, I want to talk about the R effect. And these are people I know personally. And you can see that these are the effect of learning R. This person got a data science job. Z got a senior data science role, so a promotion. Mohana got a raise, or actually several raises within a 1-year period. Herb, he built his first Shiny app in 3 months. And then Raj, he won the 2020 Shiny competition. So you can see from everyone from Masataki here who got a job all the way down the line, they're really utilizing R as the skill set to set them apart from the rest of the pack. So once you decide that you're ready to start learning R, or maybe you haven't even decided that you're ready to start learning R, but you just are thinking, hey, maybe data science can help you really unlock your superpower. Then you quickly find out that data science is challenging. Does anyone know why? What's the first question that you have to answer when you're beginning to start data science? What is the first question that comes to your mind? Answer it in the chat. We'll give you 10 seconds. Math? What am I looking for? No. Stats? No. I'll give you a hint. When you're learning data science, it's not the first thing that you search for more often than not ends up being which programming language to use. So for starters, this is the first problem. You have to decide. You have to make a decision. You have to decide between two programming language. And this can be tough. This is something that you can actually spend a lot of time on, is deciding which path to go down. Because when you make a decision to start learning something new, you normally start to research how to do X, Y, Z. And then the first thing that comes up in your search, in your Google search, is how to do X in Python or how to do X in R. And then you realize you need to learn one of these two languages. So the key here is, there's these two different kind of competing languages, and they're really viewed as kind of opposition. And for the beginner data scientist, it's, the question comes to mind, which do I start with? And more importantly, what if I pick wrong? And that's something that, people can debate a lot of time about. So I want to focus on this. This is a question that we get in every single learning lab that we do. And it's just something that we know that is in, there's a lot of confusion about. So up until now, there was a lot of pointless fighting going on. So you can view R and Python as this kind of comic book, right? It's the army versus the Pythonistas. And, in years past, so from 2020, it was 3, 2, 1, fight. And then you're pretty much warring. So you try and search for which one to use. You see R, you see Python, and then you start Googling, which to learn data science with. And, the first thing that comes up is, R is better than Python, or Python is better than R. And it leads to a lot of pointless fighting and arguing. And everyone's got an opinion, but most people have never really tried, one or the other. They just kind of picked one and stuck with it. So it ends up being a lot of pointless fighting. And the reality is that we're in a different era now. It's 2021. And now there's some new tools available, and we can use both R and Python together. So no one is talking about this right now, as far as I can tell online, other than maybe RStudio. R and Python are really not competitors. They have different strengths. You've got like Superman over here who's got different power than Thor over here, and you've got other people that have different powers, right? So when you start combining these, you get a team is what you get, and you get a blend of different skills and capabilities. So in 2021, we're not talking about R versus Python anymore. We're talking how to leverage R and Python together as best as we can. So we still, and just to prove this to you, this is actually some code that I've been putting together for one of the courses I'm developing. It's me running Python in RStudio. And, up until now, this has been pretty much unheard of, but because of some advances in technology, we now have this available to us. So it's not R versus Python anymore, it's R and Python. But I didn't answer the question, which do I choose? So the idea here isn't that one is better than the other. The idea here is that they each have different strengths, and they each have different packages in the language that people use and leverage to be able to get the job done. So some of the strengths with R is that it's easy to use for non-programmers, whereas Python tends to be a little bit better for computer science, people with a computer science background. R, it tends to be good for reporting and communication because it's got its groundings in statistical research. Whereas Python tends to be much better for things like deep learning and machine learning, because these are the mathematics, the physics, the computer science people that are really like coming up with some, cutting edge algorithms. Conversely, R, again, is more grounded, has roots in statistical research. So it's very good at data wrangling and visualization, which is what you have to be able to do to be able to develop these reports and be able to communicate the results. It's getting better in machine learning and also now integrates Python. It's not as good as Python is for deep learning, but the big challenge that I found, and I'll talk about this here in a minute, is that Python, in my opinion, isn't as good at data wrangling and visualization, some of the key skills that you need in order to be able to be productive as a data scientist or as a business analyst. And it's also a little bit more challenging for non-programmers. So if you don't like to write for loops, then Python is probably not the language that you should start out with. But if you do like to write, computer science for loops and like to do a lot of programming, then Python could be a great option for you. So they each have their different strengths, and they're a little bit different. What I found when I started learning Python, and I'm not trying to slam Python at all. I actually we'll talk about Python, how I'm getting back into it now. But the things that I found, and this is why I gave up on Python initially and I switched to R, was that it was much easier for a non-programmer. So my background was in Excel. I was an Excel VBA, power user. I was starting to get into like Power BI and what's the Power Query before I made the transition to R. And what I liked about R is that it was easy to use for non-programmers. It was great for, had all of the tools, the statistics packages. I didn't really have to learn how to code in order to be able to get up and running. I mean, you have to code to an extent, but a lot of the stuff I could do pretty quickly without having to do a lot of research. Okay, so that was my perspective. And then now I'm actually getting back into Python, believe it or not, because of some of these libraries and some of the capabilities. I'm seeing a lot of benefits of also learning Python as well, more on the machine learning and on some of the cool packages that they have that are coming out on machine learning and deep learning. So it ends up being R and Python because R integrates Python now. So I'm able to quickly, now that I know R, start to leverage my R skills to get into Python. So that's kind of how I made my decision process to learn R. So now let's talk about how to learn R fast. And before we do that, some of the challenges that you're going to immediately run into when you start to learn R, especially if you're trying to learn R on your own, which is what I did. So the first question though that I ask is, what do businesses need? And I start out with normally an idea in mind, a goal. And this is one particular goal you could have, is to build an application like this that's able to do, some sort of forecasting. I have it open over here, and I'm just going to click the run forecast button. And this is something that your business would actually need from an analytics group, so that way they can help make decisions better in their organization. So right now, when I click this run forecast, what it's doing is it's running a bunch of models underneath the hood, and it's developing a forecast for me. Something simple that businesses need, that can give them a quick benefit is an improvement in forecast, and that's what the goal is of this application. So you start out with this in mind. You want to build something like this, and you can see it's made several different forecasts and so on. By the way, I call this application Nostradamus. If you've attended some of my learning labs, you may have seen this one before. So this is your goal. What do businesses need? You set out with a goal, and you want to be able to provide this to your business. You then start to kind of try to parse out, what you need to complete this project. And this is why learning R becomes quote unquote tough. It's because you've got to learn code. That can be challenging. You've got to learn stats. That can be challenging. You've got too many resources. You've got an ever-growing ecosystem of packages, and you end up in this kind of like confusing cycle of, hey, should I learn this? And then you spend, a couple of days or a week learning something, and then you realize, oh, that's not what I needed. Then I need to start learning this. So you get into this confusion cycle, and then you really feel lost. So this is kind of the challenge, and this is where I can help and where I want to help you to be able to accelerate your career going into 2021. So my job is to help you. The first thing I'm going to do for you is I'm going to simplify the ecosystem. So let's take another look at the R ecosystem and simplify it. Just to give you an idea of what's going on, though, both R and Python are growing exponentially. So there's a lot of people that are building software that ends up being super useful, but because we're still early on in the data science, a lot of the software is not mature and new packages are coming out and they're replacing old packages at a pace that we've never seen before. And the problem is you start to learn something and then it gets replaced or then it gets changed. And that as that package grows and developers work on it, the code that you learned before becomes obsolete and you need to learn new code. And it just becomes very confusing. So just to give you an idea, this is real data here. Over the past 20 years or so, the our package ecosystem has grown like this. So we're now kind of, the growth is still increasing tremendously. We're up to over 20,000 R packages on CRAN. And what a package is a unit of code that people use that you can install on your machine to help you develop software. So you don't have, or to help you perform a function. And so you don't have to rewrite the wheel. Well, when you have an ecosystem as big as this, it becomes super confusing. You don't know where to go. And you're sitting in the back, I thought this was going to be easy. All I want to do is I want to make a forecast, right? So I just want to learn what I need to do in order to make this darn application. And you end up getting frustrated. So the idea here is that you're sitting here saying that all you want to do is you want to make this application, but you've got 20,000 R packages to pick from, and it just becomes really confusing. So my job here is to filter this down for you. I want to help you out. I want to throw you a bone, and I want to make sure you start on the right track. So there's this ecosystem that is now kind of been developing over the past several years. It's called the Tidyverse. And what we're trying to do is trying to overlay, or what I'm trying to communicate here is I'm trying to overlay a process with you and show you where each of the different packages in the Tidyverse ecosystem, in the Tidy Models ecosystem, and in the machine learning ecosystem, where they kind of fit. And this to me will help you tremendously, so you don't have to focus on learning everything. So one thing to note too, you'll see I have percentages in here. And this is just a rough approximation of how often you're going to spend time utilizing these packages. So they're in their different groupings, and then you can see that there's subgroups in here within each of these kind of phases. So the first phase is data preparation. And this is at the beginning of the funnel. So you start with a business problem, you figure out where you want to acquire data from, and what you need to do is clean that data and reformat it and prepare it, so that way you can start to do some sort of analysis with it. Well, that is where you're going to spend probably 60% of your time, because you're going to have to decide which data sources, you're going to have to connect to them, you're going to have to pull the data in. It's not going to be clean. There's going to be a lot of missing values. There's going to be features that you need to create, sometimes manually, and this can be a very tedious process. But the good news is there's a lot of tools out there to help you learn how. It's just you need to learn them. So these are the core packages, and this is the beginning phase of the Tidyverse. So readr, dplyr, and I'll talk more about these here in a minute. So again, that's about 60% of your phase. Then once you go in through here, now you've got your data prepared. You're ready to either perform some experimentation, make some visualizations. You want to model the data. You want to understand that model in terms of, which features in your data are the most important, which ones are driving, whatever decision-making that you're trying to model. And that's what you're doing in the second phase. Now, it's important to understand that you're probably actually only going to spend about 25% of your time in this kind of visualization and modeling phase, because you're spending a lot more time trying to prepare that data just to get it into this phase. So the important packages here on the visualization end are ggplot2 and plotly. Talk more about them in a minute. And then there's the machine learning part. And this is where I have 5% in red here, and it's big because while we end up spending so much time, and it's really interesting and fun to do machine learning, and it ends up being, it's what people get excited about, and you need that excitement. Don't get me wrong, but people get that excitement leads to over exuberance, and we tend to focus, so much time talking about machine learning when really we're only doing it 5% of the time. So that's the important thing that we need to take away here, is that while the machine learning is really important and it helps you make better business decisions, and that's what I focus on a lot as well, it really is kind of over focused on, in my opinion, sometimes. So but these are some of the key packages in that system that you'll want to understand. We'll talk more about these in a minute. And then the last piece, which is the communication side of it. So once you have models that you're satisfied with, then you report on them, or you'll provide some sort of communication tool, whether it's a web application using a technology called Shiny, or an API using a technology called Plumber. This is really where your business then gets the massive business value out of, because then they can take your app. Once they get trained on how to use your application, they can then use it to make business decisions, utilizing the technology, but not having to know how to do the programming for them. They're just able to kind of point and click and get results very quickly. So that's really what we're trying to do. The process is, you need to get here, and you need to learn these skills in order to kind of take you through that process. Okay. So with that said, let's take a deeper dive into some of these packages really quickly. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be learning some packages, right? The ecosystem on the data preparation end, the packages that you should focus on are readr for reading and importing data. There's also DBI, which is not shown. This is for connecting to databases. Then there's dplyr and tidyr, and that's these two right here. They are for data wrangling and processing your data. And then actually working with different data types. So there's text, which is a data type. There's time, which has a special way of working with it. And then there's categorical data, which has a special way of working with it. There's stringr, lubridate, and forcats for helping you. Then on the visualization end, there's two key packages. So there's ggplot2 and plotly. ggplot2 is for static visualizations. These are needed for reports. They don't, when I say static, it just means that when you hover across them, they don't, they aren't interactive. Whereas plotly, it is the interactive visualization that would go into like an application like this. So when I hover over it, you can see that I can point, click, and zoom in. This is all plotly that's running right here. Okay. So the idea here is, once you do the data wrangling, once you learn data wrangling and visualization, your code looks something like this, where you're doing these functions and kind of writing it like this, and it's manipulating your data, transforming it. And then you're doing this type of code down here, where you're creating what's called a ggplot and adding different layers to it, and then developing a interactive plot. And then what that does is it allows you to create these type of visuals. So once you learn that, that becomes a component of your app. And when you learn how to use these two effectively together, that's what we call microlearning. So you're learning a specific piece, a unit of something that you need to know that's going to help you with that project. It's micro learning. So it's not, you're able to add these different kind of units then together in order to complete your app. So on the machine learning end then, so again, this is about 5% of your effort, but there's so many different packages out there for machine learning, and this is where it ends up getting really confusing fast. The ones that I prefer are H2O automatic machine learning, AutoML, Tidy Models, which is an ecosystem of packages, and that contains packages like parsnip and recipes. And it also provides an integrated framework to use them all together. And then there's sub packages within that Tidy Models ecosystem. And these are three of the packages that I like to use together. Parsnip is the core modeling package, recipes for feature engineering, and there's several others. I'm not going to dive into the details here. And then on the feature importance, Lime is one of the important things, the important ways to get insights from your model. So actually, once you develop a model, you determine it's good, then you want to make some sort of business decisions based on that model. And that's what Lime helps you do. And then to give you an idea, back in this application where we saw it was creating a bunch of different models, that's what this is right here. These are all different models that were produced, and that's what these types of packages allow you to do, create those models. Okay. And then communication. So that's the 15%, the last 15% of your effort. So you're going to be using packages, including R Markdown for creating PDF reports, and Shiny for building web applications. This is an example of a web app. I don't have an example of a PDF report, but this is basically what you do. The last piece here. So this Shiny app, it's really just a container for all of these different technologies that the person that you provide the application to can then interface with. So it's nothing more than a vessel for containing the code that you've developed. So the data wrangling, the visualization, and the modeling all gets kind of captured in this application. Okay. All right. So that's the ecosystem in a nutshell. That's, the simplification process. Now I want to talk about learning R fast. So let's take it a step ahead. Now you know the ecosystem. I want to give you some strategies and tips and some cheat sheets in order to be able to help you kind of take your first steps and accelerate. So if you've never used R before, I'm going to give you some strategies. Okay, so the first strategy that I'm going to leverage here is I'm going to actually talk about what's worked for me, and we're going to focus in on projects because I think that's the first thing that that really helped me on my data science journey specifically. So to give you a little bit of background about myself, I've been using R for 7 years, but it wasn't the first probably 3 years were very up and down, very rocky using R. I did take a course. It wasn't that good. I almost quit several times. It didn't work for me. And I would go through these cycles of plateauing and getting frustrated and spending too much time learning different things. Then what ended up helping me the most, though, was I created an R package called TidyQuant. And some people may have used it before. It's a financial software. It's been downloaded many, many times. And it's something that I started as a hobby, as a project. And through creating this R package, I learned much more than any course that I've ever taken before. I had to learn all sorts of different micro things. So, basically making incremental progress to get to a larger end goal of having the software package. So I decided, I wanted to take on this, I wanted to tackle this project. It was going to handle financial data and be a pipeline to do financial analysis. Well, I had to learn R package development. I had to learn finance. I had to learn how to scale analyses. I had to learn all of this data wrangling and time series. And it ended up being each one of these were different micro goals. As I got to, as I learned one goal, then I was able to include it into my package. And before I knew it, I was actually breaking through plateaus that I previously had. It was all due to projects. So my first tip for you is, from my perspective, it's smart to do projects when you're learning. So before you decide to start tackling data science with R or Python, whatever it ends up being, start with an end in mind. Whether or not you want to have an R package or an application or something like that, start with a goal. And when you do that, you always have kind of a pathway that you're trying to get to, and you're making micro incremental progress. So you're accomplishing micro goals on your way to completing that major project. Okay. The next thing. So what worked for me was focusing. And to give you kind of a background, when I started, I wasn't very focused. So I tried to learn everything. And this resulted in literally years and years of wasted time and slow progress because I was constantly looking around trying to figure out what technology was being developed. Somebody would, I'd see something pop up on my LinkedIn feed about a new R package or a big data project or, machine learning or a deep learning algorithm with a paper to it. And I'd read it. And, before I knew it, I was spending so much time researching things that I never actually used. And that was really bad for my progress. So what I then started to do, and I think this was around like 2015 timeframe, they started to come out with some of these packages, dplyr being the main one, is I started to focus on learning specific packages and tools that I knew would help me accomplish tasks that I was doing quite frequently. So I focused on learning what is now called the tidyverse, but I started with dplyr, and that's this orange one right here, and also tidyr was the other package. And this actually helped a lot. I ended up becoming much more streamlined in my analyses, and I ended up most importantly, using a lot of the things that I was learning. So my tip for you is focus on 80-20 tools. Now, I did this analysis a while ago. This is just some of the frequency of functions that show up in certain data scientist code. This one is actually from David Robinson. I analyzed his code base. I've analyzed my own. We're pretty similar. These are the functions that we use most frequently, and they tend to come from, with the exception of base R, which is what comes with R, they come from these two packages. So the green ones are coming from ggplot2, the red ones are ggplot2. The green ones are from dplyr. So this is what I call 80-20 tools. It's tools that you're using 80% of the time, or 20% of the tools that exist out there that you use 80% to get 80% of your results. dplyr and ggplot2 are critical packages. I mean, I can't say it any other way than that. So that's the second tip. Now the third one. So, and this is a funny one because, you think of learning and you're taught in school not to cheat, but you get into the real world, cheating's okay, in certain things, at least. Lying and stealing are not, but cheating is sometimes okay. So what worked for me? Well, when I started learning the ecosystem, again, then there were a lot less packages when I started learning than there are now, but it was still very difficult. It was challenging because there was just so much. It was information overload. So what I did was I created a cheat sheet, and I did this many years ago, but I actually have just recently updated it for you. I want to give it to you guys today. And actually, David, if you want to put this in the link, you can give them the link to it. We're also going to be giving away the video, this video recording, and the cheat sheet and the slides and any additional resources at tomorrow through email. So keep your eyes peeled for that. So I created this cheat sheet, and what it did was it captured the tools that I was using for specific tasks, like finance, like time series, the basic tools for the entire data science workflow. And then what I did was I focused on learning these packages, and it really helped me kind of streamline my efforts and focused me a lot. I've actually just updated it. So my final tip, and this should be tip number 3. It says tip 2 here, but it's actually the third tip, is use my cheat sheet. So cheat, don't feel bad about it. I'm going to throw the cheat sheet up here. So the cheat sheet that David's going to give you access to looks something like this. It's got 3 pages over here. And the first page, so I want to show you how to use it so you don't, so you actually know, when you get it, you're going to be able to start using it effectively. And the first page is designed around the basic workflow. So these are core packages, 80-20, that you'll want to learn if you're going to learn R. And you can see you've got the import, and each one of these are hyperlinks. So if I click on this, this one shows me how to connect to a database. Okay, so they're all hyperlinked. And then if you see CS here, that's a cheat sheet. So this is actually a meta cheat sheet. It connects to other cheat sheets. So when I click CS here, You can see I'm now, oh, it popped up over here. It just downloaded for me the Read Our cheat sheet, and I've got it pulled open here. Okay. So it gives you access to this. And this first page just by itself is like amazing, because now you've got import, tidy, transform, visualize, model, iteration, and communicate all taken care of here on one page. The second page, it gets better. So the Shinyverse. So the second page is dedicated towards making Shiny apps. And this is basically kind of the workflow for making Shiny apps. A lot of packages are dedicated to themes and dashboards and web frameworks. So you now have access to all of these as well. And then the third page. So the final page is special topics. And this is for things like time series forecasting, anomaly detection, financial analysis, text analysis and NLP, network analysis, geospatial analysis, machine learning and deep learning, speed and scale, interoperability, and then some miscellaneous tools. So this gives you basically it's a link, a key, and it gives you the key that unlocks the ecosystem in a more manageable and a more friendly way. So now when you have specific topics, you can now focus on them. Okay. All right. So that is my third tip, is use the cheat sheet. So cheat, don't feel bad about it. So now that's about learning R. So I've given you 3 strategies, 3 tips that you can start to implement immediately. But if you try and implement these, you may still feel like it's too slow for you. It's probably going to take you 2 years or so to get up to speed. So what I want to do is I want to teach you how to learn R the fastest. This is how to make career progressing gains in 6 months or less. And when I say career progressing, I mean getting promoted, getting a job, making a transition. If you want to do that in the next 6 months, then this is the system that will help you. So my goal is to accelerate your transformation. And this is a meme here that I think kind of explains my goals and how they're aligned with yours. So you may kind of feel like this. I mean, we all do. I felt like this when I first started learning data science. I'm trying to learn how to ride a moped. I want to get to this where I'm able to do, motocross and tricks and do all these fancy things, basically with my career. So metaphorically, I want to go from this to this, and that's what I do. That's what my students get out of what I do, is they make this transition very fast, much faster than if they were trying to do it alone. So that's what I want to help you do. My goals are aligned with yours. I want you to make this transformation as fast as possible. And you can see here, we all start out as data science students, but if you become business science students, you get here pretty fast. So let me give you some specific examples of this transformation process. So I'm not making it up. The transformation that I've seen from several of my students are anywhere from I got a job to I got promoted to I've just now built this amazing, application that I could never have done. And that's really what I want all of my students, and I want you to be able to have this success. My number one goal is to make you successful, and I want you to become successful as fast as possible, because time is money, and the longer it takes you to do something, the more that's wasted, and it's just, you can do it a lot faster. So this is Jennifer. She recently got a job as a VP of strategic analytics with a company. I think it's a subsidiary of JP Morgan Chase. And during her interviewing process, she was able to take and leverage several of the techniques that she was learning through business science. So she says here, thanks to Matt, what I've learned, I was able to do an in-depth analysis of a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau data that what she was given during her interviewing process as a take-home project, following the business science project process framework and completing the project using R Markdown. The polished, finished project was able to impress the hiring manager so much that they were willing to fast track an offer. And she ended up getting a role as a VP of Strategic Analytics. So she actually was able to make this transformation. She took time, she learned from the tools and techniques, and she was able to accelerate her career, making a transition into her dream job. But it's not just her. It's a lot of students that are experiencing the same transformation, and it's exciting because you've got Masataki here who landed a job at, I believe, Deloitte. Zidu, he was got a new senior data scientist role recently. Mahana, he got a 40% raise, and then specific actions that these people are taking. You got Herb. He was able to build his Shiny app and impress his managers, and he did this within the first 3 months of taking courses. And then you got Raj here, who actually won the 2020 Shiny competition. So you got kind of a cross section, but they're all having success, and they're separating themselves from every other candidate out there that's trying to go after these jobs. The system that they're all taking is shown here, and it's 5 courses, but each one of these courses are integrated, and it's actually simplifies a lot of the work for you. And that's how you're able to leverage and get up to speed within 6 months, going from a complete beginner to actually knowing how to do data science with R, build apps, do forecasts, make the applications like these, where you're able to actually kind of produce a product that companies want and need. So the way the system works, we all start out at the beginning where we don't have any kind of background in data science. We need to learn the foundational tools. So you can see this first course is all about the tidyverse. And what this first course does is it kind of takes you up this hill. It's like climbing a hill where you learn the most important tools, like the data cleaning and manipulation, visualization next, then the data science algorithms and iteration, and then business reporting. And that gets you your foundations. And then you move on, and you have a couple options. You could go into applications, or you could go into advanced machine learning. There's 2 courses in machine learning. One is on the business science problem framework, which is what Jennifer was talking about that helped her in her interview. You learn automated machine learning, business consulting, and also how to kind of produce insights and make recommendations. And then there's also a time series forecasting course that leverages several of the most important time series competitions, utilizes my model time and my time TK software, and also integrates the Python Gluon TS deep learning framework. And then now that you have advanced machine learning down, you then move on to your web applications, which it teaches you how to build these projects and actually end up with a data product that you can provide your company. So you see predictive dashboards here, and then these are multi-user apps where your application would actually have many users of it, and you would host it on AWS and using what we call a full stack data science technology that consists of Shiny, AWS, Docker, Git, MongoDB, and those types of technologies. That may sound like gibberish to you, but basically it's just, kind of the tools that you integrate in order to be able to build an application. So that's what I do. I try to take my students through this progression as fast as possible. It definitely, I'm not going to lie to you. It takes a little bit of time to complete this system. You can see 8 weeks here, 20 weeks here, and then 12 weeks here or so. But within, 6 months or so, you're from day one, you're applying the tools. And as you make that progression through this program, it accelerates you. So you don't have to do what I was doing, which is stop, research things. It just teaches you everything and keeps you moving. So you never plateau, you just keep going up. All right. One other thing I don't show on that previous roadmap, I am working on a new course. It's actually using R and Python together. So that's what's coming next on the product roadmap. So it's another reason to get started on the 5-course R-Track system, because now you're going to learn, once you learn R, you're going to learn how to use Python. And it's now that we have these tools available to us, it's really something, because when you build your first shiny app that integrates Python, for me it was mind blowing being able to do these types of things, and just integrate the two technologies seamlessly. So you're going to learn how to do things like that.